The fluorescent lights in the Austin Memorial Hospital hallway buzzed like angry hornets above my head. My fingers were locked so tightly around Julian's wedding ring that the platinum band had cut a thin red line into my palm. Behind those heavy double doors, my husband lay fighting for every breath, tubes snaking into his arms, machines beeping out a fragile rhythm that might stop at any second. And his own mother was kicking me out. "Get your things and leave. Elena." Beatrice Carter's voice was ice-wrapped in silk. She didn't even glance at me. Her perfectly lined eyes stayed fixed on the elevator doors as if I were already gone. "My son is fighting for his life in that ICU, and frankly, your presence is just bad luck. We've invited the prestigious Miller family to wait with us. We can't have a nobody like you bringing down the energy." The words landed like slaps. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out except a shaky exhale that tasted of antiseptic and betrayal. 3 years of marriage. 3 years of Sunday brunches where she jokingly asked when I was going to upgrade my wardrobe. 3 years of Julian, choosing me over her money, her name, her entire world. And now, when he needed me most, she was erasing me like a coffee stain on her heirloom tablecloth. I could hear the distant clack of her designer heels as she turned away, already dismissing me from existence. My knees threatened to buckle. The ring in my hand was still warm from his finger. The nurses had cut it off when they rushed him in. That small circle of metal was the only thing left that still felt like us. I stood there, a ghost in my own life, while somewhere down the hall, the Miller family's laughter floated toward us like they were arriving at a cocktail party instead of a death watch. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into this heart-wrenching journey of betrayal, hidden crimes, and the sweetest karmic justice you will ever hear, please take a second to smash that like button and subscribe. It really helps me keep bringing these real-feeling stories of emotional reckoning to you. Hit the bell too, because trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next. Now let's go back to the day my entire world caught fire. The poison hadn't started in that hallway. It had been dripping into our marriage from the very first. Sunday brunch 3 years earlier. I still remember the first time. Beatrice looked at me like I was something the maid had forgotten to vacuum. We were at the Carter family estate outside Austin. 20 acres of rolling hills, a mansion that looked like it had been airlifted from a European postcard, and a dining room table long enough to seat a small wedding. I had worn my nicest dress, a simple navy shift. I'd bought on sale at Nordstrom. Rack, Beatrice, had taken one look and smiled. That smile, the one that never reached her eyes. "Elena, darling," she'd said, voice dripping honey and arsenic. "Are you sure you want to wear that to the gala tonight? It's very Sears catalog." Julian's hand had tightened on mine under the table. He'd laughed it off, changed the subject, but I felt the sting like a paper cut. Later that night, in the car, he'd pulled me into his lap in the driveway and whispered, "I don't care if you wear a potato sack. You're the most beautiful thing in every room you walk into." Then he'd kissed me until the windows fogged and Beatrice's words dissolved into steam. He always did that, shielded me. When his mother tried to pressure him into joining the family investment firm, Julian walked away. He started his own architectural practice in a tiny office above a coffee shop. "I want to build things we love," he told me the night he signed the lease. "Not things that make her richer." We celebrated with cheap champagne on the floor of the empty space. Blueprints spread around us like treasure maps. But the accident changed everything in one screech of metal. I was at work when the call came. A hit and run on Loop 360. Julian's car had been T-boned so hard it spun into the guardrail and flipped twice. By the time I reached the hospital, he was already in surgery. Beatrice was already there. Of course, legacy donor, board member, queen of the private wing. She had used every connection to take control before I even parked. The first time she restricted my visitation, she did it with a smile. "The doctors say he needs calm, dear. You're so emotional. It's better if it's just family, right?" Now, the nurse at the desk wouldn't meet my eyes. Money talks louder than wedding vows in places like this. I spent the next 48 hours in the public waiting room, surviving on vending machine coffee and the kindness of strangers. Every time the double doors opened, my heart lurched, hoping it was news, hoping it was Julian asking for me. Instead, it was Beatrice gliding past in cashmere and pearls, never once looking in my direction. By day 3, the cracks in my armor had become canyons. I hadn't slept. I hadn't eaten anything that didn't come from a wrapper. My reflection in the bathroom mirror looked like a stranger. Pale, hollow-eyed, hair in a messy knot. I kept touching the ring in my pocket like a talisman. That afternoon, Beatrice cornered me in the hallway again. This time she wasn't alone. Sarah Miller stood beside her. Tall, blonde, the kind of beauty that looks expensive even in hospital lighting. The ex-girlfriend. The one Beatrice had always wanted for Julian. I said, "Go, Elena," Beatrice hissed, her voice low enough that only I could hear. "The Millers are coming. Sarah was supposed to marry Julian before you. Seduced him. She's the one who should be by his side right now, not some girl who grew up in a trailer." The word trailer landed like a punch. I saw flashes of my childhood. Peeling linoleum. The smell of my mother's cigarettes. The way the wind whistled through the thin walls at night. I wanted to scream that I had clawed my way out of that trailer with 2 jobs and a full-ride scholarship. That Julian had chosen me. That love wasn't a country club membership. But my voice cracked. He's my husband. Beatrice's laugh was soft, almost pitying. On paper, maybe. But blood is thicker, darling. And the Carters have always protected their own. I looked toward the nurses' station, desperate for an ally. Every single one of them suddenly found something fascinating on their computer screens. The message was clear. Money talks, even when someone is dying. I walked out of that hospital with my dignity in shreds, and my heart dragging behind me like a broken chain. The Texas heat slapped me in the face the moment the automatic doors opened. I sat in my 10-year-old Civic in the parking garage and cried so hard I thought I might throw up. The wedding ring dug into my palm again, a small circle of pain that reminded me I still belonged to him, and he still belonged to me. But belonging, I was about to learn, meant nothing when old money decided you didn't. The next 3 days were a blur of grief and rage. I barely left our little apartment in South Austin. The place still smelled like him. Coffee, cedarwood cologne, the faint graphite from his drafting pencils. His blueprints were still spread across the dining table, half-finished sketches of the mountain house we dreamed about building one day. I kept touching the pages, tracing the lines he'd drawn, as if I could will him back through the paper. Every call to the hospital ended the same way. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Carter, but the family has requested that only immediate blood relatives be allowed in the ICU at this time." The nurse's voice was kind, but the message was steel. Beatrice had officially removed me from the list. I paced the apartment like a caged animal. I screamed into pillows. I stared at the ceiling at 3 a.m. replaying every cruel word she'd ever said to me. At one point I even Googled how to fight hospital visitation rights in Texas, only to realize I had no money for a lawyer who could stand up to the Carter name. Then, on the 3rd night, the Instagram post appeared. I was doom-scrolling in the dark, phone light the only illumination in the room when I saw it. One of Beatrice's socialite friends had tagged her in a story. The photo was taken right outside Julian's ICU door. Beatrice stood in the center, clutching Sarah Miller's hand like they were sisters in grief. A circle of perfectly dressed people surrounded them, heads bowed in prayer. The caption read, "Waiting for our golden boy to return to those who truly belong with him. Healing prayer circle for Julian Carter, und our family first, und our old Austin strong." The words "truly belong" hit me like a physical blow. I dropped the phone. It clattered onto the hardwood. For a second I couldn't breathe. My husband was fighting for his life, and these people were already rewriting history, pretending I had never existed. That Sarah was the rightful widow in waiting. I sat on the floor and sobbed until my ribs ached. Then something inside me snapped. I couldn't wait anymore. I dug through the closet until I found my old nursing scrubs from the 2 years I'd worked at a pediatric clinic before marrying Julian. The fabric still smelled faintly of hospital. I pulled my hair into a tight bun. No makeup, plain sneakers. If I looked like staff, maybe no one would question me. The drive back to the hospital felt endless. Every red light was torture. My hands shook so badly on the steering wheel that I had to grip it until my knuckles went white. What if security recognized me? What if Beatrice was still there? What if Julian had already... No, I wouldn't let myself finish that thought. I parked in the employee lot, heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my teeth. The night air was thick with humidity and the distant sound of cicadas. I slipped through the side entrance nurses sometimes used for smoke breaks. The badge I still had from my old job got me past the first scanner. Thank ye. God they hadn't deactivated it yet. Inside, the hospital at night was a different beast. Dimmed lights, softer beeps, the occasional squeak of rubber soles on linoleum. I kept my head down, walking with purpose like I belonged there. Every time someone passed, my stomach flipped. I imagined Beatrice rounding the corner, pointing a manicured finger, screaming for security. I made it to the ICU waiting area and ducked behind a large potted palm near the corner. The fronds tickled my face. My breathing was too loud. I forced myself to slow it down. And then I saw them. Beatrice and Sarah sat on the leather couch under the muted TV, not praying at all. Their heads were close together, voices low but clear in the quiet room. "Is the lawyer coming tomorrow?" Sarah asked. Her tone was crisp, businesslike. No trace of the grief she'd performed for the Instagram photo. "Yes," Beatrice replied, checking her gold Rolex. "Once we have the power of attorney fully shifted, we'll move him to the private wing in Switzerland. Elena won't be able to find him, let alone sue for the estate." My blood turned to ice. They weren't waiting for him to wake up. They were planning for him to stay gone. "And the life insurance?" Sarah pressed. "All redirected to the family trust," Beatrice smirked, the expression twisting her elegant features into something ugly. "That little gold digger won't get a cent of the Carter legacy. She'll be back in the dirt where she belongs by next week." I pressed my hand over my mouth to stop the gasp that wanted to rip out of me. My knees buckled. I had to grab the palm trunk to stay upright. The rough bark bit into my palm, grounding me. They kept talking about the replacement architect they'd already chosen for Julian's firm, about how Sarah's car was already being crushed at a junkyard outside town, about how perfect it would be once the unfortunate incident was behind them. I was shaking so violently the palm fronds rustled. One more minute and I would have screamed. Then a soft voice behind me. "Elena, come with me, now." I spun around. Nurse Martha, the kind-faced woman who had let me hold Julian's hand the first night, stood there in pale blue scrubs. Her eyes were wide with urgency. She didn't call security. She grabbed my elbow and pulled me into a nearby supply closet, locking the door behind us. Her face was pale in the single overhead bulb. "I wasn't supposed to tell you this, but the lab results came back for the driver of the other car." Martha's whisper in that cramped supply closet changed everything. "The car is registered to Miller Holdings," she said, voice barely above a breath. "And the DNA on the airbag, it matches Sarah Miller." The world tilted. The shelves of gauze and saline seemed to spin. I grabbed a metal cart to steady myself. "She hit him?" Martha nodded, eyes darting to the door as if Beatrice might burst in at any second. "It wasn't random. The police found the vehicle dumped in a ravine 3 miles from the scene. They're still building the case, but the evidence is there. Skid marks, paint transfer, everything. Sarah's car. Sarah's DNA." My mind raced through every interaction I'd ever had with Sarah Miller. The polite smiles at charity events, the way she'd always touched Julian's arm just a second too long, the quiet rage in her eyes the day he announced our engagement. Had it been jealousy? Or something colder, something planned? "And Beatrice knows," I whispered. It wasn't a question. Martha's expression darkened. "From the way they've been talking in that room, yes, she's protecting Sarah. Protecting the merger their families have wanted for 20 years. The Carters and the Millers together would control half the real estate development in Central Texas. You were the only obstacle." I felt sick. My husband's mother had chosen legacy over blood, chosen money over the son she'd carried for 9 months. "There's more," Martha said quickly. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small manila envelope. "Julian woke up for 3 minutes this morning while they were at lunch. The doctors were adjusting his sedation. He was lucid. He didn't ask for his mother. He whispered a name and a code. He said, 'Tell Elena, the blue folder, 7492. My heart slammed against my ribs. Julian had been awake. He had thought of me. Even half dead, he had fought to give me a weapon. I took the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside was a single sticky note with the numbers written in Martha's neat handwriting. "I copied it exactly," she said. "I don't know what it means, but he was desperate to get it to you. He kept repeating your name until they had to sedate him again." I clutched the note like a lifeline. The blue folder. Julian had always been meticulous about hiding important documents. He'd once told me, half joking, "If anything ever happens to me, look under the floorboards in the workshop. Blue folder. You'll know what to do." I hadn't thought about that conversation in years. I thanked Martha with tears in my eyes, promised I would never mention her name, and slipped back out of the hospital the same way I'd come in. Every shadow felt like Beatrice's eyes. Every footstep behind me felt like security closing in. The drive home was a blur of streetlights and panic. The moment I stepped into the apartment, I went straight to Julian's workshop in the garage. I pried up the loose floorboard with a screwdriver, hands raw and bleeding by the time the wood gave way. There it was, a thick blue folder wrapped in plastic, and a small thumb drive taped to the inside cover. I sat on the cold concrete floor and opened it with shaking hands. The first page was Julian's will, updated 6 months ago. Everything left to me, not the family trust, not Beatrice, me. The next 50 pages were a meticulously compiled dossier, bank statements, charity records, emails. Julian had been quietly gathering proof for years that his mother had been skimming millions from the Carter Family Foundation, forged invoices, shell companies, even recordings of phone calls where she bragged about creative accounting. But the real bomb was the thumb drive. I plugged it into my laptop. The video started playing. Julian's face filled the screen. He looked tired but determined, sitting in the same workshop I was in now. If you're watching this, Elena, it means my mother finally crossed a line. I knew Sarah was following me. I knew they were desperate to get rid of you. I installed a dash cam in my car that uploads to the cloud automatically. The footage is in the encrypted folder labeled insurance password. Is our anniversary 714. If anything happens to me, take it to the police and to the press. Don't let them win. He paused, eyes softening. I love you more than anything. You were never a stain on the family name. You were the best thing that ever happened to it. Fight for us, baby. I'll be fighting too. I watched the video 3 times, sobbing so hard I could barely see the screen. Then I opened the encrypted folder and found the dashcam footage. It was all there. Sarah's silver Mercedes slamming into Julian's car at full speed on a curve of Loop 360. No brake lights. No attempt to swerve. Just deliberate, vicious impact. I sat on that garage floor until the sun came up, the blue folder in my lap like a loaded gun. I didn't scream. I didn't run to the police half-cocked. That's what Beatrice expected from the trailer trash girl. Instead, I became ice. I spent the next 48 hours in a controlled frenzy. I hired a private investigator recommended by a friend who worked in corporate security, someone who owed Julian a favor and hated the Carters on principle. I met him at 2 a.m. in a 24-hour diner on the edge of town, wearing a hoodie and sunglasses like something out of a spy movie. He took the thumb drive, the dossier, and the nurse's note. His eyes widened when he saw the dashcam footage. Jesus, he muttered. This is attempted murder with a side of conspiracy. While he worked, I met with a high-stakes lawyer who specialized in white-collar crime and estate battles. Her office was on the 30th floor of a glass tower downtown. I sat across from her in the same black suit. Julian had bought me for our first anniversary. The one I'd never worn because it felt too expensive. Now it felt like armor. She read the will, watched the video, reviewed the financial records. Then she leaned back and smiled the coldest, most beautiful smile I had ever seen. We're going to bury them. I spent the day of the gala in a cheap motel room, practicing my speech in the mirror until my voice stopped shaking. I transferred every file to a tablet and a USB drive. I wore the black suit again, added the diamond studs Julian had given me on our first anniversary, and pinned my hair up the way he always loved. I looked in the mirror and didn't see the scared girl from the trailer anymore. I saw a wife ready to burn an empire to the ground. The ballroom glittered like a jewel box. Crystal chandeliers, ice sculptures, waiters in white gloves carrying trays of champagne. Beatrice stood on the small stage in a midnight blue gown that probably cost more than my car, dabbing at dry eyes with a silk handkerchief. Thank you all for coming, she sobbed into the microphone, voice trembling with practiced grief. My son Julian would be so touched to see the Miller family and all of you supporting us in this dark time. We are a family built on honor and... Honor? My voice cut through the room like a blade. The double doors at the back of the ballroom swung open. Every head turned. I walked down the center aisle, heels clicking on marble, tablet in my hand. The projector system was already connected, courtesy of a sympathetic hospital tech who had hated Beatrice for years. Elena! Beatrice shrieked. Security! 2 guards started toward me. I raised one hand calmly. I wouldn't do that. Unless you want the entire city to see what honor really looks like in the Carter family. The guards hesitated. The crowd murmured. Phones were already coming out. I stepped onto the stage. Beatrice tried to snatch the tablet. I sidestepped her easily. I think the guests would love to see the healing footage from the ICU. I said, voice steady and echoing through the sound system. I hit play. The massive screen behind us lit up. Not with prayer circles, but with the hidden camera footage Martha had helped me obtain. Beatrice and Sarah in Julian's room, laughing about how they'd already picked out his replacement architect, how Sarah's car was being crushed, how the life insurance was already redirected. The room went deathly silent. I swiped to the next slide. The police report, the dash cam footage, the DNA match, the emails. "Sarah Miller hit my husband," I said, looking straight into the sea of horrified faces. "And Beatrice Carter covered it up to steal his estate. Is that the legacy you all came to celebrate?" Gasps. A woman in the front row dropped her champagne flute. Phones flashed. Someone started recording. Beatrice's face had gone the color of old paper. Sarah looked like she might faint. At that exact moment, the ballroom doors opened again. This time it was the police, detectives I had met with that morning, accompanied by 2 uniformed officers. They walked straight to the stage. "Beatrice Carter, Sarah Miller, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and obstruction of justice." The handcuffs clicked around Beatrice's manicured wrists. She stared at me with pure venom. "You've ruined everything. You're still nothing." I leaned in close so only she could hear. "I'm the woman who's going home to her husband. Because while you were planning his funeral, the doctors moved him to a facility you can't touch. And he's awake, Beatrice. He saw the video. Beatrice lost the estate, the charity, her freedom, and every friend who mattered. Sarah is serving 10 years. The Carter name became a punchline in Austin society for years. Julian's recovery was slow and painful, but he came back to me stronger, quieter, more mine than ever. We sold everything in Texas and moved to a quiet town in the Colorado mountains. No country clubs, no legacies. Just us, the pines, and the life we actually wanted. Sometimes the world tries to tell you that you don't belong because of where you started. But karma has a way of finding the people who think they're untouchable. If you believe that justice always finds a way, leave a comment below with the word untouchable. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories where the truth finally comes to light. Until next time, stay strong. Keep your head high and never let anyone dim your light. Thank you for being here through every twist. I'll see you in the next one.